So I think we've all accepted that United aren't going to be able to get all the transfers they want done before the season actually starts, but definitely not before they go on tour. So which positions and specifically which players should be the priority signings? This is a clip from my Patreon podcast. If you do want to hear 4 or 5 episodes per month in long form podcast format, with me specifically talking mostly about transfers as it is a transfer window, then sign up to my Patreon. I'll leave it linked in the description. I think you can get a 7-day free trial as well. Also, this is my editor's channel. He also produces Manchester United content, so if you want to check it out, I'll leave it linked in the description below. But yes, as I've said, the takeover is holding everything up. I don't think that's going to get done before the start of the season. So if United want to go into the season fully prepared, ideally they'd bring in a goalkeeper, a central midfielder and a striker, but I don't think that's realistic. So I would go for the goalkeeper and a central midfielder. My top 2 picks would be Onana or Costa. As I said before, I'm not hugely fussed who it is. I do think both players, or both goalkeepers should I say, Costa and Onana. At the moment, I'd probably say that Onana is a better player, but I would say that in terms of potential, maybe Costa just edges it. But I've sort of convinced myself that Onana is the goalkeeper I want now. I started off with Costa, but I just think Onana will come in and have a bigger impact within the first 1 to 2 seasons, and I think United need that. And that does seem like a doable deal, and it does seem like United are pushing closer to it. The one I can't understand is Caicedo. I understand that Ten Hag does want Mason Mount as his first option, and that him and Caicedo are different types of players. They would play slightly different roles and offer slightly different things, with Mason Mount being more of a goal-scoring threat in the final third and providing those runs ahead of the centre forward and underlapping and overlapping the winger, whereas Caicedo's going to benefit United more in the build-up phase, whilst also sitting slightly deeper in the middle third and being more a part of that deeper 5 rather than the front 5. And so I can't really understand how Caicedo can be the Mount alternative. The only thing I could think maybe is that Mason Mount is such a unique player, which he actually is. There's not too many players who are a like-for-like alternative for him. I talked about James Maddison being the player I would prefer out of all the Mason Mount alternatives, but even then, Maddison and Mount are they're similar players. I wouldn't say they're completely different, obviously, but I don't think Maddison is a like-for-like alternative to Mason Mount. And so maybe Ten Hag's thinking, if I can't get Mason Mount, I'd rather go in a different direction and bring in Caicedo, which I actually do understand to a degree. But I just can't understand how Ten Hag and United aren't going full throttle for Moises Caicedo. To me, I didn't even expect him to be available this summer. I thought Brighton would dig their heels in and do what Tottenham are doing and basically say we're not selling. But it seems like Chelsea have made some significant progress with that deal, and I do think he'll leave this summer. If it's not to United, it will be to Chelsea, and I just don't think United can miss out. Caicedo would come in. Caicedo alongside Casemiro with Fernandes in front is an incredible central midfield, and I think the signing of Caicedo alone, because he can play that Casemiro role when he's not there, because inevitably Casemiro, even if he's fit for the whole season, which is unlikely for most players, but he did manage it last season, I think. He's going to pick up suspensions. I think that was the reason why he missed all of his games last year. And so United, if they were to bring in Mason Mount can't cover that Casemiro position. And so they'd have to bring in someone else anyway. Someone like a Sangare, someone maybe like a Kone to cover Casemiro's position, which is another £30 million, £40 million on top of the £60 million they'd have to spend on Mason Mount. So to me, it just seems logical to go for Caicedo, who's going to cost, I don't think, any more than £80 million, but he's going to be able to play not just that position alongside Casemiro, but also Casemiro's position. If you do want to see that full analysis of Caicedo, you can check it. I'll leave it linked in the description of this video. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you probably already watched it, and you're probably already up to date with Caicedo anyway, so you know what he offers. But yeah, we're in a weird situation where I would actually prefer United to miss out on Mason Mount, not only because it would stop Chelsea signing Moises Caicedo, but it would mean that United could potentially sign Moises Caicedo. If you look at it from Chelsea's perspective, if you sell Mason Mount for 60 million, and then pay an extra 20 million on top of that for Moises Caicedo, that's an incredible deal. I mean, just think of that midfield. You've got Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo, and then in front of that you've got either Mudryk or Sterling from the left, and Nkunku ahead in a central position, and then Madueke on the right. And so suddenly you're looking at it like Caicedo could be that one missing piece that Chelsea need, because if Nkunku hits the ground running, which it's debatable whether he will, it may take him some time, but if he shows anything like the form he showed at RB Leipzig, and Chelsea already have Enzo Fernandez and they bring in Caicedo, that's an incredible central midfield. Whereas you look at United on the other hand of this transfer, and you have Casemiro with Fernandes and Mount in front, to me it doesn't seem as impressive. I would much prefer United to have Casemiro, Caicedo and Fernandes rather than Casemiro, Mount and Fernandes, just because I think there's more versatility with the Caicedo alternative, but also because I think Caicedo offers so much more. He offers the same amount of pressing ability and ball winning ability, if not more, than Mason Mount higher up the pitch. And yes, he's not going to offer the same sort of ability in the final third when United have possession from a chance creation or a goal scoring point of view, but he makes up for this for what he would offer in the build-up phase, being that type of player who's incredibly press resistant, whereas I'm not really sure if Mason Mount is that kind of player that can drop into a deep position and play with his back to goal. And if you look at United, I think their main issue is playing out from the back. And with the signings of Caicedo and Onana, that would massively improve United's ability to play out of even aggressive pressure in their defensive third, enabling them to then exploit the space higher up the pitch and transition the attack quickly, which we know they obviously like to do with the likes of Antony and Rashford, providing those runs into space. And so right now, my whole view on the Mason Mount Caicedo deal is that it is probably going to be one or the other, and I would just prefer Caicedo. I just think not only is he a much better individual player, but I think he plays a role that United need. And so right now, I'm actually kind of hoping that Chelsea stick to that price that they want. They price Mason Mount out of the move. They don't move for Caicedo, and then that allows United to bring in Caicedo. I think that would be a much better scenario for United, if I'm honest. But the other news that has been reported, I think it was yesterday, was that Rabiot has apparently rejected Manchester United in favour of staying at Juventus for a higher salary, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. I just didn't want Rabiot at all. If you look at his FBref report, he doesn't stand out in many areas. And to me, whilst I definitely think he is a top level player and he would probably improve United, he would be an upgrade on Eriksen. Not in terms of his creative ability in possession in the middle third, but I do think he'd be better in the build-up, his ability to be press resistant and turn out of trouble and drive forward, and he's also a lot more physical and athletic and just a better defensive player in general. But for the aggro that's going to come along with signing him, the salary he would have commanded, the signing on fee, etc, etc, I just think there's so many better options on the market. Also, he is pushing on to his late 20s, early 30s now. It just strikes me as that sort of signing United would have made a few seasons ago and would have just gone catastrophically wrong. I just don't see how Rabiot would have been a success at United. I think what would have happened, he would have come in the first say 2 months or so and he would have looked decent. But United would have hit a rut, he would have struggled, he would have gone out of the team. And then I reckon there would just been some sort of dressing room squabble. He would have been annoyed at something would have been said. He strikes me as a potential leaker from the dressing room. I just think it would have been chaos. And I think this time next summer, if Rabiot had been signed this summer, I think he would have been one of those players who United ideally would get rid of, but he would have been on too high a wage package for them to actually get rid of him. And he would have signed at least a 3 or 4 year contract as well. And so to me, the fact that Rabiot has rejected Man United is a blessing in disguise.